Welcome and thank you for joining us to celebrate the incredible life of Dom Famularo. A man who lived each day with contagious passion and purpose. From the moment that Dom woke up, he was energized, ready to inspire all those that he encountered with his love of drumming and his unique rhythm for life philosophy. Dom believed wholeheartedly that we each have our own inner rhythm. When we find it and learn to live by it, we can achieve greatness on our own terms. This was at the heart of his teachings. Dom inspired thousands of students over the decades to tap into their personal rhythms, their individual gifts, creativity, and dreams. With humor and humility, he guided them to march and find the beat of their own drums. Dom lived his rhythm for life each and every day. He followed his own energetic pace, fueled by his lifelong love of drumming and learning. If you knew Dom, you felt his passion for bringing out the best in others, and you couldn't help but feel or feed off the vibrant spirit and joy that he exuded. But first and foremost, Dom loved his family. He lit up when speaking about Charmaine and his sons Dominic, Jonathan, and Max, who were the rhythms of his heart. Dom was so proud of his family and cared deeply about being a loving husband and father. His devotion to family was central to his life's melody. Today, as we reflect on Dom's incredible legacy, let's remember the rhythm that he set in all of our lives. Let's celebrate the creativity and individuality that he inspired in us, and let's honor Dom by continuing to share our gifts with the world, energized by all that he taught us about living life to the beat of our own inner rhythms, and enriched by the love of family, friends, and students that he held so dear. I would like to introduce our host and the founder of the sessions, Jules Fol, to the podium.
I want to tell you a little bit about a story that was really, I think you're going to find it very interesting. Scott and I were in Budapest when Charmaine called to tell us the horrible news that Dad had passed. When I saw him at his birthday party, I was convinced that he would win his battle with cancer. We were devastated, and as we sat in the lobby of a hotel for about an hour, so I could regain myself enough to walk back to our hotel. When we got to our hotel, there was a pianist playing in the lounge, and we sat and listened. I leaned over to Scott and I said, I wonder if he knows Wind Beneath My Wings. About 15 minutes later, he played Wind Beneath My Wings. As we listened, a lady walked into the lounge. She had a jacket with angel's wings on the back of it. For those of you that were at Dom's 2.0 Welcome Back party in this very room, I ended my speech by telling Dom he will always be the wind beneath my wings. Since that day, I have had 6 angel wings encounters, and I look forward to having many more, because Dom is sending them to me. Ta-da!
It is a little scary that Dom's probably everywhere now. All right, so now our next speaker, live from Meductic, New Brunswick, cultural capital of Canada, I'd like to bring up Mr. Andy Zildjian of Sabian.
animal capital. That's it. That's a hell of a stretch right there. Hey, Willie, I can see you out there. I remember we were at some gathering a little while ago, and Liv DeVito's standing next to me. You come walk. Willie has now moved to Mexico. And as you're walking up, Liv goes, "Where's the wall when we need it?" I was wondering if it was going down right then or not. Yeah, Dom, I wear a jacket at all these shows because Dom said, "You're the president, wear a jacket." So I do, and it's just the right thing to do. His enthusiasm for things, I remember when we first started working with Dom way back early, he had just read the Cubby books and gone to the courses, and God, he was excited about that. And he wrote his book, The Circle of Empowerment, which, as strange as it was to be working with a guy like Dom we'd never met before, that kind of enthusiasm, you're going, "Oh my God, is this for real?" But yes, you get used to it, and it sinks. One of the things I loved about Dom was we'd sit around, we'd talk about ideas, and he'd say, "Great idea, good, keep going, and then at the end he'd go, "Great, do it. Get back to me." And he'd be going like, "I'm doing this now?" But the cool part was that he had trust in people. He had empowerment. He let you lead and go. And he would check in, he'd guide, he'd make sure that everything was going, and then, as it says in the book, he would sharpen the saw. Right? I loved that about him. And I have used that at work all the time. Little tiny things that he gives you all the time that just sort of fit in. I think I told this story maybe last year or with a group of friends otherwise, but I was on a clinic tour with him, and at that point he had just read about Einstein. Einstein slept 3 hours a day. Dom thought, "Yeah, I can do that." So 3 hours a day, we're sitting in a car, my dad's in the front seat, he's in the passenger seat, Lib and I are in the back nudging each other going, "Here he goes, here he goes." And he'd be talking to the old man and say, "I think we should do this, Bob." And Dad would say, he'd start talking and talk back to him. And at that point, Dom would be going. And then you'd hear, "What do you think?" "Yes, yeah." and your damnedest thing, he carried on that conversation. He made it work. Now, I don't know how many people have had the chance or the luck or sometimes misfortune to be traveling with Dom, but when he would go specifically, he loved this in France because they love their wine. I brought a prop, okay? They loved their wine. And he wasn't really big on wines, but at the same time, he loved the whole theater of the whole thing. So I'm gonna end with Dom's wine selection with the sommelier. And say, "Yes, we'll have this wine." The wine would come out, they'd pour it for him, and he'd look, spin. He didn't care. And he'd spin, he'd look, he'd go, ooh. And he'd keep looking at, of course, the sommelier. And Dom's going, but it's look at the, look at how this works. And then, the coup de grace. That's great, we'll take it. So for me, that's always Dom. Seriousness, yes, but at the same time, let's poke fun at it. Thank you, Dom. Love you every day.
Next up on the hit parade is Mr. Paul Quinn, who's been with the sessions almost since the beginning, as I recall.
Since the beginning.
Yeah, since the beginning. All right, so he's got some stories, but I know this isn't part of what you were going to talk about.
Set me up. It's okay.
Okay, but because Andy talked about that wine story, don't you have a wine story with Dom?
I have many wine stories with Dom. So, for those of you that never got the joy of traveling with Dom, a joy, I cannot tell you what a joy it was. In fact, we all know Dom was loved. People that know me well know I actually am quite antisocial. And I don't really like talking to people for very long. It's not because I get bored of their conversation, it's because the little voice inside me tells me that they are bored of mine. So I once traveled for 9.5 hours on a bus with Dom, never stopped talking the entire way, never got bored for 1 minute, and never wanted that conversation to end. So that's the guy. But yes, wine was an interesting issue. There was an occasion here in sunny NAMM where we went to dinner. Mr. Miller was right there. The waiter informed us at the table, we have a special. We have this large bottle of wine. I don't know if it was 2 bottles, 3 bottles, and it's on special tonight, and therefore it will go with everything that people are eating. And we had a table of maybe 12 or 14, and Dom said, we'll get that wine. We didn't realize quite what the waiter meant by special until we got the bill at the end of the night. And Dom had rather cavalierly, yet passionately, ordered a bottle of wine that on the bill cost $1,480. So I will say he was a little mortified, but his comment was, but it was really good. So yes, I think all of us have spent time with Dom. I bet everyone here has photos with Dom. But my suspicion is, unless you know Dom well, and you were foolish enough to leave your phone on the table, you don't have these photos of Dom. And before I ask Dominic to show you some of those photos, I promise you, there is nothing obscene in these photographs. These photographs consist of noses, teeth, and knuckles. But the knuckles don't always look like knuckles. And when you would return from the bathroom or the bar with your phone still on the table, your home screen would have been changed. You know, I don't think I even knew that absent a passcode, you can just click the camera and open people's phones. And I'm not suggesting to you that you should do that to people, but remember, every time you do that, it's a little tribute to Dom. So, may I suggest, this is what happens when you leave your phone on a table. And I only picked 12 of these. I've literally got 200 of them. Now, having pointed out that I have 200 of them, the message you should get is A, he is relentless, and B, I am too stupid to learn to take my phone with me when I go to the bathroom. But, you know, we wanted to keep speeches short, because no one wants to hear speeches. And I remember thinking, I got 5 minutes. Well, that's not enough time. But then I started thinking, and if they gave me an hour, it's not enough time. They gave me 3 hours. It's not enough time. There isn't enough time to talk about the impact this man made on my life and on the impact I'm sure he made on many people's lives that are here. And one thought I would like to leave you with is that as long as we talk about him, as long as we celebrate his videos, as long as we think about him, he's still here for us. And I loved him dearly, with every ounce of my being. I miss him daily, but as long as I'm with people that love him, it's like he's still here. So, thank you very much.
Dominic? All right, so we have a special message that came in from the West Coast from Mr. Dave Garibaldi.
Hey everybody, Dave Garibaldi here. What a great thing to be able to honor such a great guy. Dom Famularo, my brother. I'd like to thank Sharpen Famularo and the Famularo family, and Jules Fol for inviting inviting me to do this and for the honor of being able to speak about my friend. You know, I thought about this for a while, you know, what I was going to say and all of that. And, you know, there was always so much humor in what we did together. You know, I was an easy target. He could say stuff and I started laughing. So, three things stand out, 3 moments with him over all the years that we knew each other. And the first thing was I was having at the time some technical issues that I had questions about, and so he invited me to come to New York. So I got on the airplane and got a hotel close to his house and spent the day with him at his studio, and he was so generous with his time and helping me and addressing all my questions and then saying really stupid stuff to make me laugh. And we just had so much fun together. It was a super memorable day. Then the second thing is we did a clinic tour together in Europe. And we were there for 2 weeks. And I think we did 23 separate drum events. It was an unbelievable schedule. And we were getting our rear ends kicked, and we were just laughing about it the whole way, having a really, really great time. And at each of the events, you know, he was very engaging, very open with people, and very patient, answered everybody's questions, offered solutions to people's questions, and then, you know, demonstrated what he was talking about. You know, he always played really, really well, and people were always knocked out with what he did. The third thing was we had done a drum event together, a bunch of great players, and at the end we all played together. And a unnamed famous drummer decided that he was going to turn it into a drum battle, old school drum battle. Well, if any of you ever saw Dom solo, he had these monster chops, always really entertaining, and he had this one thing that he would do where his right arm was kind of going in a circle and, you know, play his cymbals and other stuff while over this bass drum ostinato. And then with his left hand, he kind of hold that up in the air while he's doing this thing with his right hand. And man, he broke that out, and people went nuts. And, you know, needless to say, you know, the drum battle was over. And I talked about that for a long time afterward, you know, and I told him, man, you know, did you have to take him down with one arm? We laughed about that for many, many days after that. So, but anyway, he was just a fabulous person. I have such great memories of him, and you know, Dom, you're with me forever, brother. You know, and I love you, and I'm glad that we got to spend all the time that we did together.
Thank you, David. All right, so, you know, throughout my career, I've had to deal with a lot of attorneys. I'm not saying I'm happy about that, but, you know, but anyway, sometimes you just can't get enough of an attorney, so I wanted to call Paul back up.
That was good. You know, as an attorney, the only time I get an encore is when the judge wants to yell at me. So I wanted to, I had a couple of messages from some folks that I wanted to partake with you. So Rob Wallace sent me an email and asked me to read it today. And this says, "My letter to Dom. Dominic, we all watched as you grew into your role as drum ambassador to the world. We watched as you tirelessly flew more miles in a month than most of us fly in a lifetime. You brought the world a message of you can do it. You showed by example, carving out a career that had no personal path, no playbook or college course. You helped make the worldwide drum community feel like a closer-knit place and inspired many that they too could reach their potential in their dreams and play the drums. Yes, play the drums. We all watched you bring that message of community to what I call the best fraternity in the world. You fought a courageous battle. We all watched as you stayed strong through all the treatments and diagnoses and more treatments. We ate cannolis on your porch when you weren't strong enough to leave your house. We laughed and we shed tears. We all held hope that your incredible spirit and energy and determination could live through it. We all hugged you at your 70th birthday party, a party that had guests from all over the world and even from the Jersey Shore. You made it to your party and gave one hell of a speech that inspired us one last time, and through sheer determination, you made it to Dominic's wedding. We all watched, and now we all miss you. We have raised a glass of your beloved vino many times together, and in your honor, I'll raise a glass tonight and make a toast to a life well lived and a man much missed. Much love to you all. See you soon. Now, as if that's not enough, I also have a message from Greg Bissonette also sent me a message, and I have no idea if you'll be able to hear this as I play it on my phone, but here's the message from Greg.
Hey, it's Greg Bissonette. I'm very honored to be asked to say a few words about my good friend Dom.
He's in 100 Acre Wood, just in case you want to.
Just left the NAMM show this morning to head to Florida for the Beatles on the Beach Festival. It's been 60 years since the Beatles played on Ed Sullivan. A lot of festivals going on. But Dom Famularo, boy, do I miss Dom. My dear, dear friend. We did so many drum clinics together. And I have to just say that Dom is the one that put together the whole Buddy Rich Memorial stuff. The very first Buddy Rich Memorial was in Carroll Place, New York, at Westbury Music Fair, the theater in the round. And that's where I got to play, because of Dom, a duet with Louis Bellson. And then when I moved to LA, Louis Bellson, Dennis Chambers, and I, and then Steve Gadd, and Vinnie Colaiuta, and Dave Weckl. It was the six of us. But Dom put all that together, and he put the drum together, where Ringo and I got to start it with Come Together. And Dom is responsible for all that, for the Can-Do Music, my great friends, for all of the amazing clinics we've done all over the world. And he and my dad Bud and I hung out a lot together. And we traveled the world, and Dom was just the perfect example of a drumming global ambassador and an incredible human being, a great drummer. I sure wish that first Buddy Rich would have been memorial would have been filmed, because Dom played an amazing solo, and then I believe he played the Earth, Wind, and Fire song, Fantasy, and man, did he rip it up. So Dom, I love you. I can't wait to see you someday in heaven, and I know you're up there playing in God's band. Love you, Dom.
Thanks, everybody.
Do we have any drummers in the room? All right, so I think one of the most important things that have been created over the last several years is a little organization called Drumeo. And so I'd like to ask Jared Falk to come up and say a few words.
Thank you. Public speaking at a Dom event. I always think of how great Dom was at public speaking. When we did our festival in 2020, the first thing I thought about was, who am I going to get to MC this thing? Because I don't want to do it. And so I instantly called Dom, and before we talked about what we'd pay him or anything like that, he just said yes. And I think that's the type of guy Dom is. But I started playing drums when I was 15. And I went and bought a bunch of drum gear at a drum shop, and they threw in this VHS tape. And it was a Larry London VHS benefit concert. Did anyone see that? Yeah? Okay. I looked everywhere for it, and I can't find any of the videos on YouTube. So if anyone has them, we should talk. You have it? Oh, dang. But I just remember that's the first time I saw Dom, and he was basically dancing on top of his double pedals while hitting the china to the side with a big band. And I'm just like, who is this guy? This old guy playing the craziest double bass patterns. And so, but that's when I first got inspired by him. And so years later, I had the opportunity to take a master class at Tom Lee Music. And so I was super nervous. So I went to bed early the night before, got a lot of rest, practiced my chops so I could do a good job for Dom, who was going to be there in person. And I just remember I was waiting there, super nervous, kind of like I am tonight, talking to all you. And I just remember when he came in the room, you just felt it. And someone said, "Hey, how are you doing, Dom?" He says, "I'm great. I got a whole 2 hours of sleep last night and feel fantastic." And so to Andy's comment about sleep, that's definitely Dom. He didn't really seem to need a lot of it, which is awesome. One of the things we did at Drumeo is we wanted to go out and shoot a video with him where we would talk about the challenges of a drummer finding a place where they could practice without the neighbors, complaining. And so Dom was just totally on board with this idea. We went to the local mall, and he was roping in the security guards to help us shoot this video. And by the end of that, we deemed him the world's happiest drummer, in addition to Global's drumming ambassador. Dom was a bit like my drum dad, and I miss him so much. And because there'll be a lot of more drummers in this world, but there will never be another Dom, So, cheers, yeah. So, cheers to the world's happiest drummer and drumming's global ambassador, Dom Famularo. Thank you all.
All right, how's the pacing? Are we doing all right? All right, we only have 400 more to do. Mr. Bergamini, you're in the pit.
Want to get an intro?
Here's Joe Bergamini.
Man who needs no introduction. Hey, everybody. So, I wrote a eulogy for Dom when he passed, which was serious and sad. He was like my brother. I met him in 1989. But tonight I want to share, if you'll indulge me, some stories about him that I think really typified our relationship. And so I met him in 1989. I played at a gig, and someone from Tom Drum said, "You should study with Dom Famularo." Now, in retrospect, meeting him at that age, he wasn't yet Drumming's global ambassador. By the way, you're going to definitely need to give me the hook because I got so much stuff here to say. So I got to be friends with him, and I didn't realize that he was exploding, that his career was exploding, and he was redefining a role that no one had ever done. So I went to his drum clinic. It was with him and Liberty DeVito in about 1990, and of course, my Italian dad wanted to make sure the guy I was going to study with was good. So Dom came out on stage and started to talk to the audience. I had never been to a drum clinic before, and first he entertained the audience a little, and he asked if anyone had any questions to start out, and a young boy raised his hand, and he asked a question. He said, "What's your name, son?" He said, "Danny." He said, "Danny, how old are you?" Danny said, "15." And Dom said, "Danny, I have underwear older than you, and I'm wearing them." So that was the first, and then he proceeded to melt my face with the craziest drum solo I ever saw. I started going out to Long Island Drum Center to study with him, and he trained me, in business, and the experience, I drive out. You had to clear out a whole day because he was always running like 3 hours late, right? So you get out there, you just wait, and so many friends like Dave Stark and Frank Perry, we'd be there and we'd be hanging out waiting for a lesson, and sometimes it went down like we would play. Other times he would just like drop knowledge, and his students were all walks of life, pilots, doctors. So I used to go after a guy named Jim Valone. So I'd get there, Dom would be running 3 hours late. He'd send me to the deli with money to buy, lunch for everybody. And then I would leave, and Valone would have left behind, he would bring cannolis. Everyone brought, lots of things for Dom. But he wouldn't bring the cannolis stuffed because they'd get soggy. So I had many a lesson where Dom would actually sit there telling me, dropping knowledge on me, stuffing cannolis and handing them to me. And I would just, and back then he would say things like, Joe, most people don't make enough money and most people hate their job. So if you play music and you love your job, you got half the people beat right off the bat, So he was, full of stuff like that. I made notes because there's so many stories, and I'll just try to go. I did bring all my girlfriends to meet him, and when I brought my now wife, Kim, of 26 years to meet him, I was leaving the lesson, he pulled me back in, Kim was in the hallway, he said, Bergamini, you screw this one up, I'll kill you. He was so proud of the brands he endorsed, and he was like a magnet that you had to do the same thing. You had to do the same thing. So he was with Tama Drums when I met him, okay? And he toured with Billy Cobham, Simon Phillips put him on the map. Before I met Dom, I wanted to play Tama. All my heroes played them, and I aspired to get an endorsement with them. Dom left Tama. I had been studying with him for about 3 years, and we started writing a book together. So when I said, Dom, I want to stay with Tama, and he wanted me to go with the other drum company that he was with, this was like an audience with Don Corleone, okay? Joe, you're going to disrespect me, you're not going to go with me. So I was like, Dom, I've been through this with my dad, I can't do this again. So finally, I got with Tama. It's been a wonderful, wonderful relationship with them. About 10 years in, Dom said, Joe, it really worked out great that you went with Tom. I'm so glad we did that, The one place where Dom did insist that I go was Zildjian, okay, in about 1990. And he's like, you got to sell all those other symbols and buy Sabians, and I did. And thank God he did that. It's been a centerpiece of my career. He and two of the other gentlemen who are here, Rick and Andy, got me involved with Sabian. I'm proud to now run the Sabian Education Network. And Dom and I did tons of stuff together for that. Something I'm super proud of. A couple other quick stories. So Dom and I did, there's a lot of crazy things that you guys probably don't know. So with all these different students, one time early on, he had a student who was like vice president of a company that was like going public. And the guy's like, you guys, you should buy stock in this company. So Dom's like, you're not gonna believe this, Joe. We gotta put some money into, So Dom and I ponied up some money. We invested in this. It was like two Italian guys from the East Coast, like inept attempt at insider trading. We lost all the money, and then years later we're like, let's do this sensibly, Some of you may not know that Dom taught Steven Spielberg's son, Max Spielberg, okay? And he asked me to fill in for him, So Max lived mostly with his mom, Amy Irving, on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And I would go there and do the lessons. And then before Dom ever neither one of us met Steven Spielberg, he calls me one day and he says, Joe, you got to cover for me for Max, but you got to go out to East Hampton and, because he's staying with his dad for the summer. And again, neither one of us had met Mr. Spielberg yet. So I said, Dom, I live in New Jersey. That's like a 4-hour drive. It's like a full day. And he's like, no, Joe, they're gonna pay you for like the whole day. So I drove out there and I'm giving the lesson. Thanks to Dom, in the middle of it, knock on the door. I open the door and Steven Spielberg walks into this drum lesson that I'm giving his son. I mean, it was like, because of Dom, I met, I was like, Mr. Spielberg, I have this script I'm working on. Security? No, I didn't say that. So that was a good one. I have to tell you this one. So my hero was Neil Peart, okay?
I'm getting ready to cue the band.
Okay, cool. So my hero was Neil Peart. So Dom, as Drumming's global ambassador, he could tell you stories about everyone that he met. And everyone trusted him, everyone loved him. No one can get to Neil, okay, when he was here. I happened to have the good fortune, there's a whole other story of working on a book with him. So one day I get an email from Neil, and that always got my attention. And the email said, Joe B, and Neil spelled my name Jobee. He had a nickname for everybody. Joe B. A lot of people have been telling me that I'm close with, that I should meet Dom Famularo, and I know you've mentioned his name, and I did a little research, and I found you guys are really close. Neil was famously uncomfortable around strangers. He said, "Do you think I should meet Dom? Your honesty would be appreciated." So I thought to myself, okay, the most reserved, shy, uncomfortable around adulation, intellectual, hermit that I know, and the most gregarious, in your face. So I was like, definitely you should meet him. What could go wrong? We were business partners. We own this company, Wisdom Media, together, which is still going on. Charmaine and I are going to keep it going. We can't publish your book. Don't bother me about that. So we never disagreed on anything in business, and part of the reason why was every time we scheduled a call to talk about wisdom for an hour, the first 50 minutes were like talking about our families and nonsense, and we actually didn't get to the business till the last 5 minutes. So I just want to end on a serious note, which is this. Coming back to that first drum clinic that I saw. Dom built his career, and he became Drumming's global ambassador. But he had detractors along the way, especially earlier on. And the detractors always had the same message, which was, man, he's not playing in a band, so he can never be equal to all these other people. And to that I said, and he eventually became, you couldn't even deny what he was doing, so there was no point in discussing it. But to those people who ever said that, I had one response, which was, when you went to see Dom Famularo give a drum clinic, or a performance just with him and the drums, speaking and playing the drums and speaking to you, you left inspired, uplifted, inspired to do something better for your life, musically inspired, intellectually inspired, and moved. If that's not a full musical experience, I don't know what is. It's my mission, and I hope the mission of everybody in here, to keep Dom's spirit alive and to live his life with the passion and the fun that I experienced for 35 years of my brother. And I'm going to miss him every day.
All right, so just another story with Dom. When I used to go down to Long Island from Boston, I always wanted to see some music. And so I was coming down on a Saturday, and I said, he asked me, so what do you want to see? I said, Dom, I don't really have anybody special, but I'm coming down on a Saturday. And you know what I like to do? I'd like to go see a bunch of wedding drummers, because nobody gives the wedding drummers any love. So there's a big banquet house down on Long Island, I think it was called Leonard's, and we ended up going to about 6 or 7 weddings that day. And we would just walk into the wedding, I wore a sport jacket, he did too, and we just walk into the wedding and stand next to the drummer until they acknowledged us. And the band director, whoever's leading, said, "Who are you guys?" And so, I introduced, well, my name is Rick Drum, I'm from Vic Firth, and we're here to do an official drumstick bag check. And several of the drummers, they recognized Tom. They didn't know who I was. But, we go through the bag. We go through the whole thing. And, some of them were Vic Firth, some of them were not. And anyways, everybody got like a brick of sticks once I got back to Boston. And we did eat our share of several wedding cakes. And whenever there was an open bar, we made sure that we took that opportunity. All right. So I'd like to call up next a wonderful drummer and also corporate speaker now, Mark Schulman.
It must have been 15 years ago. We're at the NAMM show, hanging out with Dom. I think we were at the Sabian booth. We started talking about, we should get some lunch, right? We're a little hungry. It took an hour, right? Because Dom is a celebrity, right? Trying to walk through the NAMM show with Dom without getting stopped like every 3 feet was nearly impossible. So we finally make our way to, one of the horrible snack places there. And we're in line. There's a couple of young ladies in front of us, right? So of course, we start chatting them up, just being friendly and everything. By the time we get to and they have their food, we have our food. By the time we get to the front of the line, Dom buys everybody's food. Buys their food, buys my food. Dom is, because he lives, by the way, he lives through all of us. So let's get that straight. So Dom is a man of service, true service, pure service. How many people can say that? And that's why I learned, he was such a role model that day for me, just buying everybody lunch. And so I digress back to 1996. We did a clinic tour together in Germany. He was so fantastic. I'd be playing the tracks, playing my little pop tracks, and Dom would just be doing these crazy solos, working the crowd into the frenzy. So I really got to know him. And I remember him telling me this one story. And I'm telling you this story because this story changed my life, literally made me who I am today. Don said he was doing a clinic, right? As he would always do. Don did, how many clinics did Don do? So this guy comes up to him after the clinic. Guy's got a little kid. Guy's all, I'm here with my son. Dom, or everything was with a East Coast accent. So I'm here with my son. And I was blown away by what you do. You're so motivational. I have a small little company, a small little corporation. Can you just come and do exactly what you did for my corporation? He said, I think we have about $8,000 to spend. And Dom's like, we're making like $750 for a drum clinic. And the way Dom describes it, like his tongue went, oh. And so he did the corporate gig. But, Dom is such a drum ambassador and such a master teacher. He's done corporate gigs, but he never really did that many. But that stuck in the back of my head. So, I played with some artists and I figured I have a little platform. And I did so many drum clinics that I started thinking, what if I did that? What if I took the platform, took my background, took everything I do in drum clinics and applied it to the corporate world? Well, I'm a professional corporate speaker. That's all I do. I quit touring because I do so many corporate gigs, because I really worked hard to develop this business. That's because of Dom. So I am literally who I am because of Dom. And brother, what can I say? You have changed so many lives, influenced so many people in more ways than you can ever imagine. So Dom, I love you, and everybody, thank you so much for being here this life.
How's everybody feeling? All right? I just want to mention the bar's still open, the food's still open, and I'm about ready to get a drink. So all right, so I'd like to call to the stand Carlos Guzman. Is Carlos here? Incredible drummer, this guy.
Everybody's an incredible drummer. I'm humbled. First, I got to say, I'm a production manager or stage manager. I'm never up front. So I'm humbled and blessed to be asked to be here by Charmaine and Jules. So thank you very much for this. Dom taught me so much, and most of it just by being himself. And instead of me actually talking about Dom, I'm going to let him show you what he was as a drummer. Every drummer knows that a great drummer can make any band sound fantastic. Back in 2011, Jules, the patron saint of drummers, put together this incredible show in New York. Many of you were there, many of you attended, many of you played. It was the class of 80, honoring so many fantastic stalwart drummers. I was hired as stage manager, and back then, in 2011, there was no Zoom. There was no GoPro. There was nothing. I had a flip camera. I put it on top of a cymbal stand, aimed it toward the drummers just so I archive for myself the performances of the drummers. I wasn't worried about anything else. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to show you what a great drummer is. So Dominic, here, enjoy the genius of Dom Famularo. Thank you, Jules. If it wasn't for Jules, that wouldn't have been available. Okay? So everybody needs to thank this woman.
All right, quick story. Same gig. Dom liked to put me in a playing position. I had no plans to play for that gig, and we had Hal Blaine, and we had Vic Firth was there, Joe Porcaro, Bobby Morris, and so Dom said, well, you know, Rick, I need somebody to follow Lenny White. I said, what am I, like the sacrificial lamb? So I followed Lenny White playing Be My Baby. Boom, dum, 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 dum. At least I didn't screw it up. All right, so what we got up next? Let's hit parade. Oh, yeah. We would like to introduce Dom's nephew and niece, Tara and Dakota.
So first and foremost, on behalf of the entire Famularo family and my Aunt Charmaine and the boys, we want to thank everybody for being here, for your wonderful stories, for just sharing in the joy that was my uncle. So thank you so much for joining in and traveling far and wide to be here. So there's kind of an overwhelming theme that I'm feeling here, which is wonderful. And I had prepared my little book of things to talk about. But one of the things that I noticed that's most predominant is his sense of humor was just loved by all. And he found joy and humor in everything that happened. And there were no limits to his humor either, right? There is no such thing as inappropriate. He found humor in everything. But the other thing, and it was interesting, I was just talking to Dave about this a little bit ago, but one of the ways that he, we talk about how he changed your life or how he made me who I am. And the way that he did that for me is that, my Uncle Dom was a man that just did things. If he saw something needed to be done, he did it. He didn't ask anybody, he just said, let's do it, let's get it done. And he taught you confidence. He taught you how to just okay, let's do it. It needs to be done. And so it became your personal responsibility to make up what the lack of something that existed. And if you didn't know how, too bad, you had to figure it out. There was no option. It's just your responsibility to make something better. And so when I moved my family 1,200 miles away from New York, I was an attorney in New York. I loved my job. Paul Quinn, where are you? Fellow councilman. So when I moved across this country, there was no school for my children that I thought was sufficient. So I said, okay, I guess I have to start a school. And I just did it. I had no idea what I was doing. I just said, okay, and it's a fantastic school. And we've grown exponentially in the 2 years that we're open, and it's just growing as it continues. And had it not been for him and his example, there's no way that I would have the confidence to do it or own that responsibility to create something that didn't exist because there's a need for it. And so I just, in typical Dom fashion, without looking back and without complaining, I just went on that mission and took care of it. And it was because of watching him by example of just getting stuff done. And doing it as one of the most wonderful human beings you would know from his heart. He just took care of it. For me, getting stuff done, I have two examples that he did for me in my own personal life. When I got married, I asked him if he knew any steel pan drummers, because I was getting married on the beach. He didn't just say, oh yeah, I know of one. He said, oh yeah, I got your guy, and he paid for the whole 12-piece band for me. And I had the most amazing, wedding band, but they weren't just a wedding band. They were these amazing drummers, and it was fantastic. And the other goes back to when I was in high school, and I wanted to apply for college, and there was an early application deadline for me. And my guidance counselor refused to fill it out, and it was due the next day. And I remember just seeing him at whatever gathering that we were at and telling him about it, and I was upset. And so the next day, he and his brother, my Uncle Vinny, walk into the school, briefcases, with the application in hand, and barge into my guidance counselor's office, and sat there and said, you are going to fill this out. And I'm not leaving till this is done. And he walks out and he's like, got it! Got it! I'm in high school. I'm like, that's my uncle. And of course, the guidance counselor came up to me and thought I was in the mafia. And so I see these overwhelming themes. So, I said, well, his name is Donnie. So he is called the Don. So, I had a little power after that, which was good. So I just, I didn't really know the performing side of my uncle because I lived a different life. And so I had to come here from Florida to just witness this aspect of his life because I have such a big gap has been left in my life since he passed away. And so I thank you all for your stories that you share on Facebook. I read them all. I thank you for the stories that I get to hear here because you are filling in that gap for me and for other members of my family that didn't have the traveling aspect of Uncle Dom. We had the home aspect of Uncle Dom. So I get to learn about him after he's passed, and I am so grateful for all of these videos and all of these stories. So please keep sharing them. If not on Facebook, then just with me. I'd love to hear them. My uncle was all about family and community, and he was about connecting. And I think a lot of you have met because of him. And so I think together, he would always say, we're not a family that just gets together for weddings and funerals and holidays. We get together because we need to connect. And you are his music family, then I'm so honored to get to be here and meet tonight. And I think that he understood that getting together and connecting with one another allows us to deal with the changes that life throws at us, because together we're much stronger than alone. And so I came here to share a part of my uncle with you, but I'm leaving with so much more because you are sharing a part of him with me that I could never get from anyone else. So thank you so much. Please, keep his energy alive the way that you're doing, and continue to fill the gap that currently exists in this world.
So the word I will end with is capacity, and how I get there, we'll figure that out. I was very similar to my uncle in that at 21 we both moved to LA for different reasons and different extents of time. I'm still there. He had left a few years later. But I spent my life traveling. I work as a filmmaker, as a writer, as a producer, and I have both been unmoored in my professional life, at the same time moored to my family at home. So as I've grown into an adult, I've been able to share an experience of life and work that mirrored my uncle's. We would share stories of flying, and maybe we'll meet in Brussels, or maybe we're going to meet in Nairobi, or maybe we're going to meet at Christmas. And it was all this wonderful blend of relating to somebody that was doing something so magical, but logistically we had some stuff to talk about. And so much so that his 2.5 million miles on Delta, wouldn't you know that flying back from his memorial was my millionth mile, and I sure had someone to share it with. So it was a very special thing, and the same thing, he and I are both very, there's no borders between our personal life and our professional life. We could have conversations about art, about music, about family. and they're all kind of conversations about life. And so what I'm going to try to do is delineate 2 quick anecdotes, one professional and one personal. Professionally, as I said, we got to link up at points where I would see him. I saw him host the sessions, and I'd seen him perform all over the world. He did clinics at my elementary school when I was a child. It's been able to see that on stage and then be able to go eat off stage. And we had countless dinners in LA when he was on an elbow connection on the road, where he would try to set me up with any waitress with a heartbeat. And I recall one time he got us into the George Lopez show because one of the drummers was his disciples. And he looks over to this lovely young lady next to us, and he goes to me, he looks and he says, "She's got great posture." And that was his, so I appreciated his help. But one of the most amazing things we got to share was this professional capacity of doing multiple things, of living our lives, and every now and again money kind of intercepted a job in between those things. So we got to live and be that. And so much of the professional anecdote I'll share is hearing how he was a motivator, and he was a teacher, and he was a parent and a father and a brother and a friend to people he might not have been biologically. And I say that in the sense of whether it was something you were writing, thinking about, a business, whether it was music, a project, he would be on you to be your best self, and he'd call you, and I have Siri can't keep track with the voice to text. The beginning is all mumble jumble because he goes, "Hey, Dakota's Uncle Dom, here we are," and it's ready to go, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going, I got to do something today that wasn't on my calendar, but I have to do it because he's forcing me to do it, because he's making me do it. I got to work on this incredible project called Drum Together, which I directed and edited, and some of your faces I know by name and by talent, and sure, yes, that was the brainchild of my uncle, to take 150 of you knuckleheads and organize you into something that made sense. And I got to meet and work with you remotely and directly, and I see these faces that brought me into that, and the magic of Russ Miller, I see him right in front of me, these amazing people and drummers that I got to be taken into his world at the stage of his career and be a part of that. So to have that professional life was incredible, but only because I had that pain that was him, of which we reflect now upon beautifully, but when they're around, it's a pain. And so why I say that is because the pain was not because of him, it was me. It was my avoidance to not be lackadaisical. It was my lack of confidence on a Zoom call where I have these experts asking me questions. And so it wasn't because he was my pain, it was because I was resistant to that change. And so what I ask, and the call to action for all of you, is continue 2 things. 1, continue to be a creative pain to your friends and your loved ones, and continue that. And 2, be forgiving when your friends are creative pains. I made something that was his dream, not even mine. And so the idea that he saw me and what I could do in a capacity that I couldn't even see myself. And the Johann Wolfgang Goethe quote, of which I've practiced that name for years, never got it right. But I'm paraphrasing, but when we treat people as they are, we make them so. When we treat people as they ought to be, we make them capable of becoming who they are capable of becoming. And he saw me professionally in a way that I did not see myself. That was my Uncle Dom to a T. And so if it wasn't for him, that project wouldn't have happened. And ever since his passing, I have had this fire to exceed beyond what I can imagine. There's another quote I love, which is, if your dreams seem realistic, they're not big enough. And so him entering my life has allowed me to be that way. And now that he is gone, I am feeling that fire, though I am tired. And so I ask of you to please be a pain to me and each other, and bother your friends and your colleagues and your artists, because it is that allows us to be what we become and the artists we could become, and that Famularo flame will burn. So that's my professional side. The personal side is much more simple and kind of the same. I have the incredible blessing of being an uncle of 3 beautiful children, one of whom was not here 72 hours ago, and now she is. So that's that. Thank you. And my incredible sister and my family, and the support of that has been, it's incredible bringing life into the world at this time. And there was something that happened when he passed. My relationship with my nieces changed. Because what I know my uncle to be is a capacity of which I am in awe of now in reflection. And when I engage with my nieces, I recognize what I could fill up, what is possible for them to feel. And I recognize the path ahead of me to do that. And entering a third one in the fray, I get to meet her in a way to be able to have that capacity. And I realize he didn't leave shoes for me to fill. He expressed that I have big shoes of my own that he hopes I can grow out of. So again, I ask you all to think about your capacity and break that, because if we continue to be that annoying to each other, be it with family, be it with empathy, be it with love, or be it with music, it's going to break us from the dream that we thought we were going to be, but go well beyond that. And so thank you, Uncle Dom. Thank you, everybody here, and thank you.
Rick DeYoung, longtime member of the Sessions, and now a member of Con Selmer?
Yep.
Artist Relations?
Yep.
Anybody need a trumpet or saxophone? He's the guy you talk to.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. You're welcome, Rick. So, just 3 quick stories. When Charmaine and Jules asked me to speak, they said, do you have any funny stories? And I said, yes, I have some funny stories. So to the family, I want you to know what your dad, your husband, did with me. So I wanted, and I hope he did some of this to you, because I sure as heck don't want to be the only ugly duckling that experienced the wrath of Dom the way I have. So very first time I met Dom, I am not a drummer, but I was asked to be by Joe Hibbs, bless Joe Hibbs' heart too, by Joe Hibbs, got with Jules and said, hey, I got a guy that should be on the panel, a guest panelist. I'm a film composer. I was a guest panelist in Detroit, or in Dallas in 2013. I'm not a drummer, so I didn't know who Dom was. Sorry, I didn't know. Liberty DeVito was there. Didn't know who Liberty was. Peter Erskine was on the guest panel. I didn't know who Peter was. So I'm in a van going from the hotel to the venue, and I'm meeting these people for the first time. Paul Quinn, who's also an amazing drummer. Carlos Guzman, Liberty, Dom, Peter Erskine, we're all in the van. Joe Hibbs is in the van, and I'm sitting right behind Dom driving, and Dom got lost. So he sees some people walking. Remember, first time I met him, I'm nervous. I'm the only non-drummer there. He rolls down the window, looks out to these people, and he says, excuse me, we're lost. Well, where are you going? Well, we're looking for the homosexual monk convention. That's what he said. And I was just like, where am I? No, it's worse. Because then he said, excuse me? So he said it louder. I said, and I don't have to repeat it. That was my first experience with Dom. Another story, we were in Italy. And I don't know if Dom did this at home with you, but whenever we went out to dinner, if you ever had dinner with Dom, you can't leave anything on the table. You must eat it all. And sometimes we'd be so full and he'd be like, dessert, please. And we're like, oh, please no, because he makes you not just be good in life, like you just explained, but he makes you eat all the food. That's true story. So we're in Italy, and we're eating the food, whatever. Well, one of Dom's Italian students, grandmother or mother, I can't remember, made some chocolate liqueur. I only drink Coors Light. I don't drink hard liquor. But Dom's like, Rick, you got to finish everything. I said, fine. That's not, you remember this story. So the next day, we have to drive to the venue, and it's in Italy, and the venue we're going to is the very top of a hill. And they know I get car sick, so they always put me in the front seat, because I have terrible motion sickness. And after the night of the liqueur, I wasn't feeling the best. Dom and Joe Hibbs are sitting in the back. We're going up this mountain, and it's like this, and it's like this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Dom sees me, and he's like, oh, hey, Rick, how you feeling? How were those greasy eggs this morning you had? Hey, Joe, Liv, what'd you think about that sausage and that fat that was on it? I'm just like, oh, the whole ride up the mountain. So I don't have to finish the story, but just thank goodness there was a wastebasket in the van that we were going up the hill for. And then the last story, I think we were on a bus or a train going from Paris to Belgium, or one of our trips, and Dom had his phone out and he was watching a video, and I was interested. I said, oh, what are you watching there? And he goes, oh, I don't know if it was his father or his father-in-law, but he had a fall and he lived by himself, so they put cameras in the room. And so he was watching to see his dad, and so I looked over to see what he was watching. Just staring at a living room in black and white, nothing there. So I go, oh, okay. And he was explaining, so I turned away. He goes, no, come here. You want to see an old man naked run through the living room? I said, no, Dom, I don't. So I got up and he goes, no, come here. It's going to happen any minute. He goes, you know, Rick, you're going to look like that someday. And the last thing, and this is so true, is when we do our panels, there's a thing that Liberty would say when Dom would ask all the panelists about what inspired you to get in music. And Liberty would always say the Beatles. He said he turned on the Beatles one afternoon in the Ed Sullivan Show and he saw 1,000 women screaming. And Lib would always say to Dom, that's why I wanted to be a drummer. I wanted to make 1,000 women scream. And Dom would look at him and said, you want to make 1,000 women scream? I just want to make one woman scream. And it was always, you got the same laughter. But what I would say is what Dom probably knew is that he made us all scream of love and laughter and hope. So thank you.
All right, I'd like to call to the stand Mr. Frank Perry, longtime friend of Dom.
First of all, I'd like to thank Jules. I'm honored that you even considered me for this. And I'd like to thank all the Famularos for being the big Italian family that I never had. In my life, I have known 7 great men. 6 of them were Dom Famularo. This year marks 20 years since I started my journey with Dom. And in preparing for this event, it caused me to reflect on my time with him. If I knew then what I know now, I would have driven away as fast as I can and never looked back. But I want to tell the story of my first lesson with Dom, a tale that would come to be known as Baptism by Dom. My wife and I had recently moved back to Long Island. I hadn't studied for a while. I was looking for a teacher. And at the recommendation of my longtime friend and teacher, thank you, Mike Sorrentino, I sought out this legendary figure talked about in hushed tones in drum shops around the world. Famularo. I was about 15 years into my career. I'd done tons of gigs, had done some recordings. Thought I had a pretty good handle on things. I had watched the Larry London tribute video at least 1,000 times because I loved Terry Bozzio. And I had seen Dom in clinic, so I thought I knew what to expect. So I figured I would take a few lessons, see what he was about. No problem, go on my way. Well, I opened the door, and it was like I was shot out of a cannon into a tornado and landed in an active volcano. I quickly learned that Dom did not just teach you the drums. Dom assaulted you with the drums. Dom bombarded you with the drums. Dom, Chuck Norris, roundhouse kicked you in the head with the drums. On a side note, it's rumored that Dom counted to infinity. Twice. So basically, I'm there, I'm Gomer Pyle, Dom Sergeant Carter. He's shouting out, free stroke, pumping motion, 2 to 50. So there I am, furiously working on the pad, trying to get through this, looking at myself in the big mirror in front of me, working away. And I'm like, okay, I must be doing pretty good. He's not yelling at me anymore. So I look up at Dom, and Dom's sitting there. My first thought was, shit, I killed him. I played so poorly that I literally broke his heart, and he died. I will forever be known as the man who killed Dom Famularo. So for about 15 centuries, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Dom. And then I'm like, is he asleep? Was my drumming so boring that I put him to sleep? Finally, he opens his eyes, and he sees me looking at him, and he's like, I was really listening. Who am I to question his methodology? So, at the end of that lesson, I felt like Dom had taken my brain out of my head, put it through a wood chipper, put it back in my hands and said, put this back together, you have 2 minutes. I felt like he had taken all of my fingers, tied them in knots, tied my hands in knots, tied my hands, my wrists in knots, pulled them over my head, around my back, and said, okay, now relax. So in hindsight, if I knew then what I know now, would I do it all over again? In a heartbeat. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to call up somebody that has been an inspiration to me personally and millions of other people. Great bass player, Leland Sklar.
It's it's so fabulous being in a room full of drummers. It's fantastic, and I feel so cocky now. I had my first. I'm just going to go over my first experience with Dom. Jules, they set up an interview at one of the hotels here at one of the NAMM shows, and they said you're going to go and speak with Dom Famularo. And I'd heard his name, but I'd never met him. And so I came over to the hotel. I forget which one of these ones it was that they had a room. But I knocked on the door, and the door opened, and I was only sorry I wasn't wearing sunglasses because the light that shone on me was so intense and so bright. And it was this incredible man. And we sat down, and within a second, I wanted to marry him. I mean, the love and excitement that it exuded from every pore of this guy was beyond comprehension. And it was I've done a ton of interviews in my career. He is the best interview I ever had. He's smart, he's insightful, he's creative. He was asking questions that nobody had ever asked before. And I just sat there and I just went, this is unbelievable. I was only sad when the couple of hours we sat there were over because it felt like 5 minutes that I'd been with this man. And we talked many, many times after that, and we were talking during his illness. I went to him on a number of events that he did at NAMM. But he was just this life force that was kind of unlike anybody I'd ever met in my life. He was something else. And looking at these pictures, I just go, he can't be gone. He's not gone. Because a man like that, he made my life better for knowing him. And the only regret I have at this point is that I didn't know him sooner and that I didn't have him longer. Because I love this man. So I'm so thrilled that we're doing this tonight. So I haven't had much to eat today, so I'm going to go eat something while somebody else comes.
All right, I would like to ask a tremendous drummer and friend, Mr. Russ Miller.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Rick said, how long you plan on staying here tonight? I said, well, what do you need? He goes, you got to close. I'll do it. So Dom Famularo, I got to tell you, I've heard a lot about Dom tonight. And, he's inspirational, incredible energy, all the things we've talked about. But I want to talk about an element of Dom Famularo that's so important that we always forget about. and that he was an incredible salesperson. And he had the ability to sell you on anything at any given time in any given project. So I met Dom in 1983. I was 13 years old at a drum clinic in Canton, Ohio. I think he was about 30-ish, and he was just starting that process of building that whole thing. And for some reason, we sort of hit it off there, and I kept in contact with him through the years. And this word kept coming up between Dom and I. We've heard a lot of his sayings, right? We've heard the onward and upward, and we've heard the fantastic and ta-da and all that stuff. But this other word kept coming up, and it was the word incredible. And he would go, I remember that night, look at this. This is incredible. You're here. You're learning. You're in front of everyone else. Everyone else at home. It's incredible you're here. Okay, I remember that. Years later, I show up in the scene. Maybe 10 years later, I'm now a professional. I'm touring. I got endorsements. I'm doing clinics and whatnot for the companies. And we connect on a clinic. Look at this. This is incredible. You're doing it. It's incredible. It's happening over and over. But then, all of a sudden, incredible started to turn from inspiring to selling me on things. Right? Like, Miller, years later, Miller, listen. We're going to go to China, okay? We got to go to China. There's 1 million kids there. We're going to teach all these kids, and we're going to do this camp. You're going to love this thing. It's going to be incredible, right? Where is it, Dom? It's in Tianjin, China. We're going to go there, and listen, this is the dates. Can you do it? Will you do it? Okay, yeah. Oh, listen, I'm calling Weckl. If you and Weckl do it, it's going to be great. The thing's going to be incredible. Oh, okay. All right, I'll do it. We'll do it. So, of course, I get there. He's already there the day before. He's teaching. Everything's going on, right? I get there. I'm like, what are we doing? First off, it took 163 hours to get there. Like 4 trains, 3 cars. So I finally get there. The guy can barely speak English, and he's telling me, this is what we're going to do. You're going to teach for 9 hours for 4 days, and every day at the end of the night, you're going to do a 2-hour clinic, and I'm like, what are we doing? So immediately I'm like, where's Famularo? He's already teaching, right? So I'm like down the hallway, and I'm like looking through the window. He's already teaching, and I'm looking at him like, hey. And all he does is mouth the word. This is incredible. Right? Dakota mentioned another incredible project that we did, which was the Why Hunger project called Drum Together, right? So he calls me, Miller, selling me again. This is what's going to happen. This is going to be incredible. We're going to feed 800,000 people. Right? I'm like, personally? No. He's like, no. We're gonna record, come together. We're gonna do it with Ringo. I'm like, okay. That's great. That's incredible. So then he lays on me what it's actually gonna be. Listen, I want you and Greg. Randy Waldman's gonna do the arrangement. Randy's incredible arranger. I don't know if you know, he's incredible. But he's also like it's going to be a science project, right? It's going to be 11 minutes long. It's going to have 47 movements, 93 tempos, all the stuff. Okay. So I write out the charts with Randy. We do the whole thing. Okay, listen. Miller, you and Bissonette, you guys go cut the tune, and then we're going to have a couple other drummers play with you. You pick where you want the other guys to play. Okay, all right, so I go and cut the tune, Greg cuts the tune, and then I sit on the chart and I write, well, this would be good if we had a guy play this bar. So I send it to him. He's like, listen, what you did is incredible. It's awesome. There's going to be a few other guys. I need some more openings in the song. I'm like, well, how many guys? 102. And listen, Miller, you're an incredible engineer. You got a beautiful studio. You make all these records. I'm like, oh. You know what would be incredible? I'm like, oh. what, Dom? He's like, you can mix it. I'm like, wait, what? All right, I'll do it. So I mixed 102 drummers into this song. Poor Dakota did an incredible job of editing it, right? So not only did he have the ability to sell you on doing something that there was no possible way it ever would seep into your brain that you were going to do, but no matter what happened during the process that you thought was like, wow, we're totally off the rails here, he would turn it back into something positive and inspirational. I remember when we finally got a hold of Ringo, that was a process, but here we are like talking to Ringo on the phone, right? So, I mean, you're like, is this actually happening? Listen, Ringo, all we need, listen, just play the beat for Come Together. Don't, there's no click, just play. Just sit down at the drums, boom, boom, sagga-da-beesh, bugga-da-bugga-da-bugga-da-boom, boom, boom. That's all we need. Play 2 bars, we're done. We'll take it from there. Okay, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. That's going to be incredible. Miller, is it going to be incredible? It's going to be incredible. Right? So we finally get the video back from Ringo. It's on an iPhone. And he goes, boom, boom, peace sign. So I'm like, oh no, he didn't play the beat. And so I'm waiting, I'm trying to get a hold of Dom and email him. He writes me back and he goes, did you get the video? Did you see the video? Did you see the thing from Ringo? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, he played boom, boom. What, he's like, isn't it incredible? I'm like, yeah, it's incredible. It's awesome. It's Ringo. He played the bass drum and he gave us a peace sign. I'm in, So he had the ability to do this. Now, I want to say a couple other things about Dom. Over the years, Dom and I did things all over the world, like many of you guys. And, it just, like I said, I think the last time we were here and I was talking at the Dom 2.0 thing, I would say, no matter where I was at in the world, I'd be on tour. I'm in Madagascar, and the guys are like, "Hey, you want to go to the music shop in Madagascar?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So we go there. You walk through the door, and they're like, "Man, you're a famous drummer. It's incredible. Hey, do you know Dom Famularo? He was just here." Anywhere I went, it didn't matter. Anywhere in the world, Dom was just there, no matter what happened. Right? So I knew, the reach that he had was incredible. He was incredible. He sold me with the word incredible. He did so many things that were incredible. And so when I was talking about, when Rick and of course Charmaine and Jules asked me about speaking here tonight, the word incredible jumped up. So I looked in the dictionary, what does it mean? It really comes up first as exceptional, right? That's another word, that's really what the definition is. So, as we end this evening, I think that it would be awesome if we described Dom with that word. So if we could all say it together, and I think it's a meaning of how exceptional he was, how incredible he was, inspirational, all of those things. So, on 3. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Incredible. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you so much.
We're about to wrap up, and I've just got one more story about Dom that happened 32 years ago tonight. I was working with Remo. I was Director of Sales and Marketing, and we were having our 35th anniversary. And the night prior to us having our 35th anniversary, Sabian Cymbals was having their 10th anniversary. So we had a big extravaganza planned, and we had Louis Belson playing with the Frankie Cap, Nat Pierce Juggernaut Big Band. First of all, we had a samba band that marched us from our Remo booth all the way over to the Hilton. Then the Frankie Cap band. Then we had a couple of hand drummers, great hand drummer John Bergamo, and then Arthur Hull doing a drum circle. And from that we went to Mickey Hart playing with Airto. And I had hired great saxophone player Brandon Fields, playing with, had about 7 different drummers. And then we had this up-and-coming band out of the LA area called Toto, playing for, actually they just came in and played 1 tune. And I had hired to MC the event Joe Piscopo. All right, so here's the story with Joe. So Joe was hired to do his Frank Sinatra bit, comedy bit, and also his rock drummer comedy bit. And while the Sabian party was going on, a bunch of us went up to Brandon Fields' house, and we did a rehearsal. The drummers was kind of, each one of them running down the tune. And then I played the drums for Joe's act. We ran that down. And then Joe and I are sitting out on a wall in front of Brandon's house, and I had this list of all the performers for the next night. And I said, hey, Joe, here's the list. And he said, okay, do we have any writers? I said, writers? Yeah, man, I need material. I said, all I need you to do is just say their name. He said, oh, no, I can't do that. I got to have writers. I said, okay, we're not going to have writers, so I'll make another plan, and you just do your act. And so I got in the car, hightailed it back here to Anaheim. Dom and the Sabian event was just coming to an end. I grabbed Dom pretty close to his last word of saying good night to everybody. And I said, so what are you doing tomorrow night? And I told him what the situation was. I said, Dom, is there any way that you can MC this event? And he said, yes, of course. I said, let me just clarify something. Do you need writers? He said, no, of course not. So, I mean, there was a lot going on that night. I was involved in the production thing of it. We had a great crew. And Dom just handled it as Dom would. Incredibly. Did a great job. And when I was asked to MC this event, I just felt, well, okay, now we've come full circle. And so thank you, Dom, and thank you all for coming, and please hang out. And I'm going to use one more word that Dom would want us to use. Network. Get together, talk to one another. All right, enjoy.
Dom Famularo here, the Sessions panel. This is so exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Click the subscribe button to be a part of what we're doing. The views help us tremendously. All of your comments, we read them and react to them. This is incredible. The support you're giving us is great. The Sessions panel. We'll see you real soon.